Well, it is good to be back with you as we are here for another day of Bible study, continuing on through our study of the Enneagram and specifically type 2 personality this week, the helper. All of this brought to you courtesy and thanks to those who are a part of Christ Table. And if you'd like to find out more about us, visit that website right there, www.christtable.today. Sign up for our email list. We're always communicating all of the things that I say here in writing to you over email, as well as additional information. And consider giving. We only are able to accomplish these Bible studies daily for you because of the donations that you regularly make. And so thank you. And if you aren't a donor, would you consider joining us, partnering with us, no matter how large or how small? Every single gift matters. Now, I also want to let you know that you can be a part of this Bible study each and every day. We are not yet even quite to the middle of the Bible study, so there is still time to go. If you'd like to join us in these daily readings, you can visit go.christtable.today/BU. There's a PDF there that will give you all of the 36 people that we are looking into from the Bible, as well as the Bible passages for the daily readings. You can also take the Enneagram personality test there as well for absolutely free. There's a link at that website so that you can figure out which of these 9 personality types you perhaps most likely fit into, so that you can see which Bible characters might be most like you in Scripture, have your strengths, and maybe even have a few of your weaknesses, and that's okay. You can also download there from Amazon a copy of this book, The Road Back to You by Ian Crone, which dives deeply into all 9 of these Enneagram personality types, and we discuss this once a week together on a Zoom call. You can be a part of that at 8:00 p.m. on Wednesdays by visiting go.christtable.today/discuss at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And a group of us will be there to be talking about that week's personality. This week we'll be talking about the helper, which just happens to fall in chapter 6. So you can get the book and just read chapter 6 and join us. And even if you haven't read the book, go ahead and show up, because we discuss lots of things and you won't feel left out whatsoever, especially because you're following the Bible study. So you're going to be right there and up with us. Well, today we have the privilege of jumping in again to number 2, the helper. So let's dig in. When we come to today's study, we're looking at Mary, the mother of Jesus, which I have to admit, I was wondering whether or not I should actually include Mary, but Mary is such a fascinating figure in Scripture, and today's passage, for some, may be a familiar one, but for others, not so much. It is chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, which is the story of Jesus' first miracle in Cana of Galilee, of which Jesus's mother takes a very prominent role, and the role that she takes is that of a helper, which is why we are kind of making an assumption that she was probably a helper. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about what that personality type 2, the helper, is, the type 2's basic desire or goal or need is to feel loved and to be needed. And so that is the motivating drive behind helping other people, is in order to receive love and to feel needed in return. Obviously, the fear is that they will be unloved. If I'm a helper and I'm giving help and assistance in order to receive love, I may have a fear within me that I'm not loved, or that I'm unlovable, or that I'm just going to always be serving and helping and be taken for granted. Now, the sin that sometimes just kind of takes over in a 2 personality type is the sin of pride. That without people needing you, without a helper being involved, the world would stop spinning on its axis. And so that can be a danger, and 2s have to watch pride. Now, are you a 2? Are you not a 2? If you haven't taken the Enneagram personality test, then maybe if you find resonance in most of these words, then maybe you're a 2, a helper, friendly, empathetic, generous, hospitable, overly accommodating, sensitive to criticism, self-sacrificing, loyal, a cheerleader, or even a people pleaser. So, with that as our background, why don't we just go ahead and jump into the story in John chapter 2, verse 1. There was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother tells him they have no more wine. Jesus, the oldest born, obviously Jesus and Mary have a unique and special relationship. It may well be that this is the wedding of a family member, somebody who was perhaps a distant cousin or a niece or a nephew. And so the entire family is gathered there. Jesus brings along his disciples, and wedding celebrations in those days lasted days, sometimes even a week or longer. But they ran out of wine, which is a really big thing today, but was a really big thing back then because it was considered to be the height of lack of hospitality and rudeness to not have enough wine to cover the length and number of people, the attendance at the wedding event. At their best, twos, helpers, sense exactly what others need and are generous in meeting those needs. And so Mary realizes that the wine has run out, and so this is going to automatically trigger her helping mechanism inside of herself, and she's going to take over here. She's going to get involved. This is her moment to shine. And as a 2 personality type, you long for these moments where help is needed, and without your help, things are going to fall apart. Remember that need to be needed and that fear of not being needed. This is the shining moment. This is the Super Bowl for you, and it was the Super Bowl for Mary as well. And at their best, at their most healthy state, twos shine in these moments. They sense what the need is, and they are generous in meeting those needs. And we see that in Mary. There's also a downside to that, though. We'll get to that in just a moment. Let's keep reading. So Mary says, Jesus, there's a problem here. They've run out of wine. You need to do something. Dear woman, that's not our problem. I love that Jesus says that. Maybe it's that he didn't recognize his mother in that moment. Maybe he's being playful and funny. Woman, honey, it's not our problem, Jesus replied. My time has not yet come. I'm not ready for this. I'm not up for the task. That somebody else can help fix this situation. And I love this. Classic mom moment. His mother, rather than responding to Jesus, looks to the servants and says, do whatever he tells you. She is not taking no for an answer. A helper never takes no for an answer. A helper never looks at a situation and says, somebody else should be involved and do this. Somebody else has the gifts. No, a helper looks at a situation and says, something must be done about this, and I'm the one to do it. So at their best, helpers sense exactly what others need and are generous in meeting those needs, and Mary was, because she was generous in offering up her son, whom she clearly knew had a unique ability to solve problems. But at their worst, and I love this because this was written before we chose Mary as a helper. At their worst, helpers sidestep healthy boundaries, give too much to others, and end up feeling spent or taken for granted. And I love that line. Helpers tend to sidestep healthy boundaries. Mary sidesteps a healthy boundary here. Now, we can argue and say that it was for the good of the outcome. It was for the good of the wedding. We might even say that it was for the good of Jesus. But at the end of the day, Mary crosses a line. At the end of the day, Mary sidesteps a healthy boundary, and it it goes well here. Jesus doesn't really rebuke her. We're going to see in just a moment that he solves the problem. Everybody is happy. The wedding continues on at a grander scale than it did even before. But we also see some other moments in Scripture where Mary sidesteps a healthy boundary, and it doesn't go so well. There's a moment where Jesus is preaching and teaching in a synagogue in his hometown, and his brothers and Mary come in and confront him, saying he's gone too far in what he's saying and what he's doing. And Jesus says a prophet is never a prophet among his own family and in his hometown. So there are moments where that sidestepping a healthy boundary is going to go well and maybe even be the right thing to do, but there are also other moments where it doesn't. And if we're not in a healthy state, we're not going to fully recognize and see what the difference between a boundary that should be crossed is and a boundary that's a healthy boundary that should not be crossed. This is the danger for a helper. Standing nearby, after she says, do whatever he tells you to do, she's crossed the boundary now. He seems to relent. Standing nearby were 6 stone water jars used for ceremonial washing. This is the tub of water that people would have washed their dirty hands and faces and feet in. It was nasty water. Each could hold about 20 to 30 gallons of water, and so Jesus told the servants, fill them all the way to the top. When the jars had been filled, he said, now dip some out and take it to the master of the ceremonies. So the servants, they follow the instructions and take what was once this nasty bathing water to the master of the ceremonies. And when he had tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, though of course the servants knew, he calls the bridegroom over and says, a host always serves the best wine first. Then when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine, but you have kept the best until now. And this miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time that Jesus revealed his glory and his disciples believed in him. And so in this moment, this helper personality helps Jesus come into who he is fully going to be for the rest. His time has not yet quite come, and yet he takes a step, a very large step fully into that person whom he has created and designed to be in that role that he is Messiah, assigned to accomplish because of a helper. But I think, as we've said, for us, we are not Jesus. But when we are Mary, and there is an urge within ourselves to rescue or to help, and we are overwhelmed by that, it's always important, especially if you're a number 2, to step back and ask, is this mine to do? Is this my problem to solve? Transparently, sometimes the answer is going to be yes, because God has wired you to help. And even if you're not a type 2 helper personality, it doesn't mean that you're off the hook for helping. It just means that it might not be your sweet spot. And you should always be asking yourself that. Is this mine to do? And oftentimes, even if you don't feel like being a helper, involving yourself, it is yours to do or to be involved with. But sometimes, and this is going to especially apply to those who are that type 2 helper personality who can't help themselves from helping, sometimes that's the best and the most important thing that you can do, is to help by not helping. Sometimes you're helping them by not helping. You know, you're the old line, teaching them to fish rather than just giving them food. But sometimes you're helping yourself by not helping. When the urge to rescue, to help overwhelms you, hit pause, center yourself, reflect, and ask, is this mine to do? Yes, I have the gift and the desire, but is this mine to do? Until tomorrow.